Hello, and I'm speaking with Stefanie James, an English astrologer, and she's going to tell us a bit about her lecture and a bit about her life in astrology. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi Alex, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. A little bit cold here in London.
Yeah, just a bit.
Stephanie, could you tell us a little bit about your astrological journey?
Oh gosh, well, without getting into too many gory details, it actually started at around my Saturn return. Just before my Saturn return, I started studying an astrology course with an English astrologer called Mary English, actually. I'd always been interested in astrology since I was very little, and planets, just space. I just was fascinated. And then around my Saturn return, like I mentioned, I got into this astrology class, this very basic course that I did with Mary English, and it just sparked my interest. I suddenly thought, wow, there's so much more to the birth chart. So I started thinking about where would I go and study and what would I do, and I found online some London School of Astrology things, and I thought that looks interesting. And I was kind of, deliberating. I didn't really know whether I wanted to or not, because I thought, well, it's a studying, going into further education, it's a commitment. And then my mum got very ill over the space of about a couple of weeks. My mum got very, very ill and nearly died. I have a Saturn Pluto conjunction, so when I was having my Saturn return, it had actually just gone over Pluto first, and yeah, it just basically made me realize that I was living my life to please other people, and I had to do something that really set me alight from the inside out. So basically, yeah, I signed up to the London School of Astrology, and since then I've not looked back. I've done all sorts of courses with loads of different astrology schools. I've actually been asked to go back and teach at the London School of Astrology now, and I've done a lot of writing, and I've done a lot of talks across the UK, and I'm coming over to India to do my talk as well, and it's
Yay.
all just starting to go crazy. So I'm really happy because Pluto's made it to my sun, and it seems to be turning what I love to do into a career option for me.
Excellent. You raise a really interesting point about astrological education, because I think a lot of people who aren't astrologers tend to think that astrology is just the 12 signs, and it's just something as simple as knowing your own star sign. How long have you been
Mm.
studying astrology?
Okay, so I started that course in 2012, the one with Mary English. Oh, was it 2012? Yes, it was 2012 I started it. And but I'd kind of looked at things here and there, but I officially started studying with Mary English in 2012, and when I started in October 2012 with the London School of Astrology. And that's when I started. It was really nice because every little question you've got, you can just say, what does this mean? What does that mean? And when you're in a class full of loads of people, everyone's got questions that you probably haven't thought of yet, and they'll ask questions, and then you get really into the nitty gritty of it. And I probably could have gone into a slightly more advanced class first, but I decided to go straight down into the basics, because I've always said you can never do too much of the basics, and it's nice to know everything at the bottom level very well. It's a good foundation to have.
You're very patient. Because
I am.
oh, I always found, a little bit the opposite, really. I couldn't wait to get beyond the basics and start doing, more advanced things. But that was to my own detriment, actually. You're absolutely right, I think, to go back and make sure you understand the basics, because, I think a lot of astrologers I talk to, the astrology is so rich, and there's so much there to learn, and so many different takes on
Mm.
astrology. So, there's lots of different things. But you're going to be speaking at a conference that will have quite a big Vedic base. Have you
Yeah.
studied Vedic astrology, or does that particularly interest you?
It's a completely unknown area of astrology for me. I haven't studied any Vedic. I've spoken to Vedic astrologers, and I've had because with the Vedic they use the sidereal zodiac, don't
Mhm.
they?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so I've had a few Vedic astrologers contact me, and we've had little chats, and I've had a couple of them say, let me do your chart for you. So I think in Vedic astrology, I think I'm in Sagittarius, and I think oh gosh, what's my ascendant? I think I've got a Taurus ascendant. So it's it's interesting because I can relate to some of those things, but I definitely stick. I'm comfortable with the tropical zodiac, but I would like to explore Vedic at a later date and really get involved with it because it's very interesting.
Yes, and it's incredibly brave of you to, come all the way to India and, to learn this different system. Because I think, Western astrologers tend to be a little bit reluctant to get involved with Vedic because, the Western astrology is so vast, as I said, and there can be a little bit of reservation about taking on, a new
Mm.
culture on top of a new zodiac. So I think it's very, very brave, to take such a huge step. So what will you be talking about in India?
Okay, so actually, I've probably been very brave again in my choice of subject because I've chosen to talk about outside of the traditional planets and talk about Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn. It's more, I'm talking about the stellium of the Capricorn stellium, which kind of started off in 1988. Or that's when it became the super conjunction, when you like got all of those planets that were building up in Capricorn. And I wanted to look at how they, with the basically, I'm going to have to teach some people that have no idea about the outer planets. I'm going to have to do a kind of quick overview of what Uranus and Neptune actually mean as planets. In astrology, their symbolic meaning in the chart, and then I'm going to have to try and help people to see how being in Capricorn was affected. How Capricorn was affected and how that whole generation probably can't really identify with Capricorn because Neptune is so nebulous and you can't really identify much with it when it's there. And then try and interpret not only that, but hopefully present a very interesting talk about really how it's affected, because these people will be coming up to their Saturn returns now, and how basically it's the language and the way that they were considered to be the leaders of tomorrow, how they're creating their world for us to step into now. And it's not actually in the world of business necessarily, as most people thought with Capricorn, it's all, business and enterprises and that. But actually with Uranus and Neptune, it's often to do with things like animation and the film industry. So hopefully it will be interesting and hopefully I'll do a good job of it. I hope I do it justice. But I really enjoyed writing my article for the publication that's going to go out. And it really fired up, my interest in the subject even further. So I'm excited to come over and talk about it.
Excellent. I'm sure you'll do absolutely fine. I read your paper too. I thought it was a great paper, and it's.
Thank you.
I think you're absolutely right in in that when you for both sides, the sidereal and the tropical zodiac, there's going to be a little bit of needing to slow down and explain things because I think astrology is very much like a language. The more fluent we get, the harder it is to slow down and remember that there's unfamiliar terms to the other zodiac, and it works both ways. So just as you're a little bit nervous about teaching them, they're also going to be a little bit nervous about teaching us as well, because
Yeah, true.
it's opening up a huge treasure chest full of wonderful things and new terminology and a different culture, and it's going to be a very exciting conference, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
definitely. I'm really excited about it.
excellent. So what's in the future for Stephanie? What's your next steps?
Gosh. Well, actually, at the moment, I've got a lot of talks booked, just UK based at the moment, but a lot of talks booked around the UK. And I recently spoke about Lilith, another thing that I'm not too sure if Vedic astrology takes Lilith into consideration. But I spoke about Black Moon Lilith at the AA conference in September. And so I'm just going to go around now to some of the local astrology groups in the UK and share my findings with them. I'm also at the moment working like crazy on my website and trying to get make it look great and put a bit more content on there, making some downloads for that, and seeing clients in the meantime as well as also being invited back to the London School of Astrology to do some teaching. And that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I've also not just with my astrology, but I also do have a podcast, a side project with a friend of mine from the US, and we do the odd show here and there about astrology. So we're just about to start setting up some live podcast shows, because at the moment they were just recorded, but we're talking about going live with the radio show, and just sort of fine-tuning the details. But it's going to be about all exciting alternative subjects that are not mainstream whatsoever, and looking at things through from current affairs to conspiracy, using the lens of astrology.
Oh, excellent. Just give us your address really quickly for people who want to check it out.
Okay, so actually, at the moment, the radio station, we're just setting it up, so it doesn't even really have a website at the moment. I believe it's www.hijack-radio.com, and hijack is HIJAC, which is hey, it's just a conversation. Just in case people, get triggered by some of the subjects that come up. And my website, my astrology website, is stelliumastrology.com. So that's the two places that you can find me.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Stefanie. And we very much look forward to hearing your lecture in India. And until then, wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see you.
Thanks, Alex. You take care, and I'm looking forward to seeing you too.
Okay, thank you. Bye.